Can somebody just very quickly throw out 7 movement streams or 7 exercises if they didn't have access to a gym? Quick, go. One-legged exercise.
Split leg squat. Split leg squat.
Yep, split leg squat, yep. Something like that, like a lunge or a split squat. Yep, what else? Two-legged exercise. Back squat. Deadlift. Front squat. Goblet squat. Lots of different things, right? Jumping exercises. Jumping onto a bench, standing long jumps, vertical leaps, combinations, ankle jumps, all of those sorts of things. Pulling exercises.
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you do it off?
Tree branch.
Yeah, tree branch, the monkey bars. That's what I mean, this is what I'm talking about. It's about you guys, if you don't have access to equipment at home, it's about thinking what stuff could you access that would help you to do those things, right? Most parks and stuff these days have some little, bars and stuff set up at home that you could find maybe within your, when you're walking the dog, you do a few chin-ups and stuff when you go out to the bar, or you do the, where the horizontal bar is about here, you do a horizontal pull-up, instead of just a straight chin-up. There's lots of those things around, but you guys need to find where these things are. If you don't have access to a gym, or you can't get there, if it's closed, or whatever it is, it's about finding ways that you can still address the needs of your training program, without all of that fancy equipment. If you don't have the money to go and pay for a fancy gym membership, you've still got to get this stuff done, don't you? You can still have success and be a successful baseball player, even if your parents don't have the money to send you to the fancy Fitness First gym down the road. You can come up with solutions to your training needs. Does that make sense? Does anyone have any questions? Sorry, what else did we get to? Shoulder function? Supermans, yeah. What about internal and external rotation? How are you going to do those without a TheraBand? Baked beans, perfect. What else? Your water bottle. Fill it up with water. Get creative. It's about just coming up with stuff that you can use at home. If you don't have an external load, you don't have a squat rack and fancy weights and all that stuff, how could you do a back squat? Sandbags if you got them. What else? Your sister, for sure. As she grows and gets bigger, so does your resistance. What else? Your school bag full of books. Fill it up full of books. Gradually put more of your textbooks in there. Squat with your backpack on. There's lots of different ways that we can do it. So it's about getting creative. Anything else, Nelly?
I don't know.
Beauty. Thank you, sir. All right, we need to keep wriggling on. I promised we'd get out of here on time, so I want to keep moving. Any questions about our 7 key movement streams that we use as part of our strength programs? You guys have got it pretty much under control? Beautiful. All right. How do you reckon this guy'd go throwing? Why do you reckon he'd struggle? All right. So again, notice the title at the top. We're developing movement. Thanks, Stu. We're developing movement, not muscles. All right. So if you work hard in the gym, if you practice all of the right movements and all of that sort of stuff, if you work to increase your movement efficiency, if you increase your strength, your range of movement, all that sort of stuff, it will help you look good. No question. I'm not suggesting that this guy looks good, but it certainly will help build bigger muscles, no question. But obviously this guy has done a hell of a lot of building of muscle, but it doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be good at throwing. Doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be good at running. All right? So again, we're trying to make sure that we develop movement efficiency. We're developing the movements, not the muscles. All right, flexibility. How do we develop flexibility? We want to move joints through a wide range of movement, often. What do I mean by that? Stretching. Stretching's one, yep. What about all of those exercises that we just talked about? Prehab, yep. Prehab helps develop range of movement, but how? Yeah, doing them often helps, but how does it help improve your range of movement around joints?
Making sure you feel a stretch when you do it.
Yeah, so, well, yeah, but when you do a squat, for instance, do we squat here? Or do we squat with as full a range as we can, provided we can keep our back straight? What do you think? Option number 2, right? Right. So we want to take all of our movements that we do in the gym, not just the ones that are specifically designed for flexibility, but we want to try and do our strengths movements through a wider a range of movement as possible. Obviously within our technical limitations, but we want to make sure that we do that. Yes, so as we mentioned, static stretching. What's static stretching? Nate, you mentioned stretching before. What's static stretching?
It's like holding it and not moving while you're doing it. It's like you're stretching your hamstring.
Yep.
Put your legs down front.
Yep. So you basically take the muscle to its end range of movement and you hold it there for a period of time, don't you? Hold it there for, say, 30 seconds. All right? Can somebody tell me what's dynamic stretching? What's that?
You know, warming up the muscle and moving it while you're stretching it.
Yeah, what's an example of a dynamic stretch?
Leg circles.
Yeah, arm circles, leg swings, all of that sort of stuff. So you do leg swings. Most of, in the level 4 accreditation material, one of the warm-up exercises is a leg swing. So we start nice and low, but we gradually increase the range of movement, trying to get the foot up higher, that sort of stuff, increasing the range of movement around joints. Again, at the start of a session as part of the warm-up, it's movement-based. We're not necessarily just doing static stretching anymore at the start of a session, but we're using dynamic stretching. So you need to make sure you understand the difference between the two. They're both very useful at helping you develop your range of movement around joints and your movement efficiency, but they are different and they do have slightly different functions. So make sure you understand the difference between two of those. We want to make sure we complete full range of movement when we're exercising. So those exercises that we talked about before, the 7 streams of movement, in each of those you want to make sure that you take the movement through basically the fullest range that you possibly can. Unless you've got a specific reason why you can't do that, an injury or something like that that would prevent it. All right, again, progressive overload. How could you progressively overload your stretching?
Reach further.
Carter?
Yeah, like if you're doing your hamstrings, when you're on the ground, like reach as far as you can.
Yep. Yeah. So if you were to hold that stretch for a long time, you would slowly over time hopefully feel the muscle start to relax and that sort of stuff and start to lengthen a little bit more. So as it starts to lengthen a little bit more, you can continue to push just a little bit further within your pain limits and that sort of stuff. That's one way to do it. What else? How else would you progress, slowly over time, progress your stretching?
Using bands.
Yeah, using bands. Perfect. Hey, that's a good one. All right. So has anyone ever stretched with bands before? Bands or ropes or some sort of pulley system or something? All right. None of you guys have done that before? I'm sure some of you guys have. There's a couple of little nods, right? Once, you know you have. Right. So without showing up my skirt, I'll do it over here. So if I've got a rope or a belt or some sort of band and I wrap it around my foot, rather than just stretching my hamstring here and just holding it there, I'll use the band to hopefully my invisible band. Can you see my invisible band? All right. Gradually stretch that further using some extra resistance. All right. So again, you've got to be slow and progressive with it. You don't want to just have range of, say, 30 degrees and then overload it by going straight to 90 degrees. Obviously, that's going to end up badly, but you get the idea. Cross training. There's a perfectly good example of some cross training. Anyone done any yoga before? Hands up if you've had a crack at yoga before. It's not bad. I've done a fair bit of yoga myself, but it's a really good way to develop your flexibility. So some people kind of giggle up the back there, right? But that's okay. There's some giggles. I'm not sure if they're giggling about the yoga, but it's a really good way to help increase your range of movement around joints. All right, so that's an option. I always found as a youngster, when I was in the prime of my career, I didn't necessarily have as much issue just sitting down in front of the TV and stretching for half an hour or whatever most nights. But as I got a bit older and I got bored with it or whatever it was, it became harder for me to do that. So what I actually had to do was specifically block into my weekly plan an hour of my time that I would sit down and devote to developing my flexibility. And so I would take a yoga class and you would just schedule it in and away you go. All right, and that gives you a good flexibility session once a week. Before we go on, any other questions about developing flexibility? As part of our programs, we will provide you with stretching programs that you can take home and do what you're on your own. Again, what you do with those is up to you. I've had a pretty comprehensive stretching routine that I personally really like, and I send it out with most of our programs, and then at those training sessions I then sometimes ask kids to name stretches that are on that program, and more often than not, 95% of the time, none of the kids can answer and give me stretches that are on that particular program. Why do you reckon that is? Rode? Why do you reckon it is?
They're not doing it.
Yeah, because they don't actually, the resource that I gave them, they don't actually do it. It's just a resource that goes, oh great, I got a stretching program, fantastic, that's going to help me. Doesn't actually help you unless you go and stretch. All right, so again, this stuff comes down to you.